TENYI is a deck of worm monsters that revolve around non-effect monsters. They have two Link monsters, one Link 1 and one Link 3, that don't have any effects, and all of the main deck TENYI monsters have two effects. One of them allows you to special summon themselves from your hand when you control no effect monsters. That includes when you control no monsters at all, or if you control one of your non-effect Link monsters, like a Monk of the TENYI. And they also have a second effect that is specific to each main deck TENYI monster that allows you to banish itself from your hand or graveyard to activate a certain effect. So let's go over them one by one. First is our main searcher, TENYI Spirit Ashana. It has a special summon effect. I will not go over it again. You can banish this card to summon a TENYI monster directly from the deck, and also it locks you into worm-type monsters, which is not a concern because every single monster except for Pentastag is a worm, so the restriction is basically not there at all. Next is a Vishada. When you banish this card, you could bounce a card your opponent controls. It can be a monster or it can be a back row. This is your main form of removal. It gets around graveyard effects, it bypasses destruction protection. It's a pretty good effect. Next is our main tuner, level 1 at Hara. You can banish this card to target one of your banished worm monsters and add it back to your hand. This is your main way of recurring your card advantage. And usually you will add back a card like Ashana, so you can use this special summon effect to special summon another Adhara from your deck, and then this loop will continue until you lose all of your TENYIs in your deck. Next is 3 copies of the Fire TENYI. When your opponent activates an effect that targets a face-up non-effective monster, you can banish this card and negate and destroy that opponent's card. This is a really good effect if we're going first, because our main game plan going first is just to end on a single non-effect monster and protect it with effects from the graveyard. So this target protection will be really nice to have. Next is 2 copies of the Wind TENYI. You can bash this card when your non-effective monster battles, and your opponent's monster loses 1500 attack. So even Monk of the TENYI will be able to beat over a card like Red Eyes Black Dragon or Dark Magician. Next is 2 copies of the Water TENYI. This effect allows you to banish itself from the graveyard when your non-effect monster gets destroyed. You can summon that monster back to your field and then destroy a monster your opponent controls. You can also use this effect when you link summon a monk and crash into your opponent's monster. That will be able to trigger the graveyard effect as well and clear one of your opponent's monsters. And also the effect triggers whenever your monster is destroyed, including with your own effects. So you could destroy your own monsters, which we will I will show you how we will be able to do that. In the expensive version, we're playing a card that allows us to destroy our own monsters. For the spells, we're playing 3 copies of Vessel. This is the main searcher spell. It allows us to send a worm from our deck to the graveyard, and then if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you add to your hand 1 TENYI monster with a different name from your deck. So usually what you do is you special summon any of your TENYIs, you make the Link 1, and then you activate the spell, you grab something like an Ashina, or you could grab one of the Fire, Wind, or Water TENYIs that you don't have, and then you send Ashina to the graveyard to activate the graveyard effect to summon a TENYI from your deck. Next is a Heavenly Dragon Circle. This is our second search spell. It is a quick play spell, which is really useful. It allows us to tribute a worm monster and then add a worm monster from our deck to your hand. It is generic, you can add any worm, but we're not playing any other worm, so it doesn't really matter. But if you tribute a non-effect monster, you can special summon that monster instead, but you negate the effects. During your main phase, if you control a non-effect monster, you can bash this card from your graveyard and then add a TENYI card from your deck to your hand. But these 2 effects have a shared hard once per turn. This this quick play spell is really useful for dodging your opponent's disruptions. For example, if your opponent activates a Book of Moon, what you can do is you chain the spell, you tribute the monster that your opponent targets, you get a search from it, or if you tributed one of the non-effect monsters, you get to special summon itself immediately. And because our entire deck is basically all TENYI monsters and spells, we are really consistently able to open a hand that ends on non-effective Berserker plus some number of TENYI monsters in the graveyard to protect it. For the extra deck, we're playing one copy of a Draco Berserker. This is from the bundle. It is a really strong synchro monster. It is generic, and it has a quick effect. When your opponent activates a monster effect, you can banish that monster. It doesn't negate the effect, but it gets rid of it. If this attacking card destroys an opponent's effect monster by battle, this card gains attack equal to that monster's attack, and then it can attack another monster during the battle phase. This is a really good effect to OTK your opponent, and because your opponent only has 4,000 life points, if they don't gain life points or anything, it is usually the end of the game once you attack the second time. If you attack a high attack monster, it gains the same amount of attack, and then you attack again, and it usually is enough for a lethal. For the links, we're playing 2 copies of Shaman. This is our main link 2, it needs 2 worms. You discard a card and then revive a worm from your graveyard, and also it locks you from activating the effects from your extra deck, except for TENYI monsters. When an attack is declared involving your face-up non-effect monster, including when your opponent attacks you or when you attack your opponent, you can pop a card your opponent controls. Next is to link 1, Monk of the TENYI. It doesn't have any effects, but it is crucial for a combo. It gets rid of our effect monsters and turns them into non-effect monsters, and that allows us to use the effects of our TENYIs. Next is one copy of Berserker. This is our main turn 1 play. We are going to end on a single Berserker, we're going to gain life points with our skill, and then we're going to protect it with cards from our graveyard. It will be, we can negate a effect that targets it. We can lower our opponent's monster's attack if they try to attack over us, and if our opponent manages to destroy our Berserker, we can revive it with the Water TENYI and pop a monster our opponent controls. Next is our other link free. It is an effect monster, but it cannot be destroyed by battle with an effect monster. If you control no effect monsters, you can destroy effect monsters your opponent controls up to the number of non-effect monsters you control or in your graveyard. This is another way we can clear our opponent's board if we make this card. I have not made this card so far. Usually you're gonna make Draco Berserker, but sometimes you have way too much material and you're going second, and this is a card that you're going to make. I'm playing one copy of Pentastag. I'm just experimenting with the final slot of this deck because we're playing a free-to-play version, and usually you will play a copy of Baxia, which I will go over when we talk about the expensive version, but since this is a free-to-play version, we're not playing that card. So I'm just trying out some generic options that you could play. I'm trying out Pentastag because the idea is that we could have our Draco Berserker at the link point of Pentastag, and it gives that monster piercing. So even if our opponent has a full board of defense position monsters, we can still OTK through that. For skill, we're playing 3 effects. Basically what we do with that skill is during our first turn, we summon Berserker, and we're going to use our skill, targeting the Berserker, and we gain 3,000 life points. So even if our opponent has a way to somehow get rid of our Berserker, even with all the graveyard protection that we have, we will probably still not lose because of the sheer amount of life points that we have. This is the expensive version of the deck. We're playing 3 copies of Ashana. I only have 2 copies of Ashana, that's why I'm playing 2. You should probably play 3 if you have it. And we're only playing 1 of each of the Fire, Wind, and Water TENYI. And instead we're playing 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. We don't really need Disruption in this version. I don't really like playing Disruptions in my version of a TENYI deck because my turn 1 game plan is to end on a link-free Berserker plus protection from the graveyard. If you like to end on Draco Berserker plus back row, that is fine. You could build your deck around that. You can remove the fire, wind, and water Tenyis and replace them with something like a Book of Moon, or even maybe remove some heavily Dragon Circles for even more back row. I personally like playing more Tenyis because that is just more consistent. And also, it is just generally better if you go second, if you open with a whole bunch of different named Tenyi monsters. And the extra deck, we're also playing basically pretty much the same thing. I couldn't find space for the third monk. Maybe you could remove a shaman if you want to, but I like playing two. And instead of Pentastack, we're playing a copy of Baxia. Baxia is a Yang Zing synchro that works really, really well with our deck as well. It is a worm, it's level 8, it is perfect for synchro plays. And when this card is synchro summoned, you can target cards in the field up to the number of worms you use for the synchro summon. So it's going to be 2 cards. And you return them back to the deck. It is a really good form of removal to just get rid of your opponent's cards without having them return back to the hand or destroying them. It's just a really good form of removal. And also, once returned, you can target one card you control and a level 4 lower monster in your graveyard. You destroy that card on your field and then special summon the target from your graveyard. So this is the way that I was talking about to destroy your own monsters to trigger the effect of the Water Tenyi, because the Water Tenyi can also trigger when you destroy your own stuff. So your Baxia will be another way to trigger it. So a single Baxia is pretty much free removal. And that is pretty nice. So I've played this deck for a while. This deck is definitely strong, but I don't know if it's going to be top tier. I think it might get into the tier list as maybe a tier 3 deck, but this deck does have a bit of flaws that I'll talk about later. First of all, my version of the deck is pretty consistent because we're playing so many Tenyi cards. We don't break very often because all the Tenyis basically special summon themselves. We're playing 6 spells that search our main searcher, and Tenyi Spirit Shana special summons stuff from your deck. So the deck overall, even as a free-to-play version of the deck, it is pretty consistent. And secondly, we are basically unkillable if we go first. We have a Berserker, which has a free fast attack. It is protected by stuff from our graveyard, so your opponent cannot target it with effects, your opponent cannot beat over it by battle. And also, even if your opponent does destroy it, we can revive it and then pop a monster our opponent controls. And if our opponent somehow gets over all of this, we still are going to have 7,000 life points for them to chew. And I don't think a lot of decks are capable of playing through this turn 1 setup. It doesn't give us any kind of disruption. Our opponent is free to do whatever they want, and that is one drawback of playing this version. But we're basically guaranteed that we're not going to lose in if we go first. And also this deck is pretty good going second. We have plenty of options to remove our opponent's cards. We have most notably Vishada is a pretty good removal. It removes both back row or monsters. If we mill it with Vessel for the Dragon Cycle, we could bounce our opponent's back row before we summon anything onto our field. We have Shaman that destroys a card. We have Draco Berserker, which is a really good OTK machine. And Draco Masters also pops multiple cards. So this deck has absolutely no problem going second. And also, Quick Play Spell also allows us to play through some number of disruption. Even if our opponent tries to disrupt one of our monsters, we can distribute that monster and then summon another one from our deck, so we can continue playing. Well, one of the main drawbacks of the deck is that, first of all, it kind of locks you into worms if you use the effect of a Shana, or if you use the effect of a Shaman, so you're kind of limited on the cards you can place on both your main and extra deck. Usually that isn't that big of a problem, but it does limit you from playing stuff like the Nightmare cards, for example. Second, if you play back row in this deck, you risk bricking. Because the reason why my version is so consistent is because we are not playing any single staple in the free-to-play version. But if you want some number of staples in your deck, you're going to sacrifice consistency. And the main problem with consistency of this deck is that there is no one-card combo. you always need at least 2 cards. Usually you want one TENYI plus a vessel that will basically give you free materials to make a Berserker. But there is no 1-card combo, so you can't just jam in a whole bunch of staples and still expect the deck to be very consistent. And also, the deck doesn't really have a lot of disruption within the archetype. The only disruption you have is Draco Berserker's Banish effect, which doesn't negate the effect, it just kinda banishes that monster, and the effect will still go through, which is kind of a small drawback. But I do think the capability of going second makes the deck worth it. So the deck overall, as you can see, it's pretty cheap. You just go over the mini box once or twice. You don't even need 2 copies of Ashana or Vishana to play the deck because of all the search spells that you have. You could very well play the deck with only a single mini box. So this deck is probably going to be a pretty good pick for new players as well. So with that said, let's have a look at the replays. Our first game, we are going first. That is amazing. Actually, this deck doesn't really care if we go first or second. This deck has plays for both. But since we're going first, we're going to be able to show you what this deck is capable of doing when we go first. We have a 2-card combo. 1 TENYI plus a vessel will basically give us the turn 1 end board that we need. We're gonna make a link 1, activate a vessel, grabbing the water, milling a Ashana, so we could summon the wind from our deck as well. That is enough material for a link 3. We activate 3 effects. I summoned Berserker in the wrong zone because I'm still quite new to this deck, and also in Master Duel, it doesn't really matter which zone you place your Link monster, but in Duel Links, it matters because we don't have 5 zones. But anyway, our opponent's been Vendreads, they're not going to do anything. So let's just close this game. We're gonna activate our second vessel. Before we commit to anything, we're gonna pop our opponent's back row. We're gonna bounce back to the hand. Our opponent's gonna negate, that's fine. We're gonna special summon Ashana, normal summon Tuner because we have a effective monster, so we can't special summon the Adhara, but normal summoning it is fine. We're gonna also special summon a Vishada, Draco Berserker attack. He's going to summon back the Revenants, but that's fine. We can attack twice, we can attack again, and then we're gonna deal enough for lethal. In our second game, we're playing against Speedroids. We're also going first. So we're going to do the exact same thing. We open with Vessel again. That's amazing. We're gonna special summon the Fire TENYI, making the link 1. Now we have a non-effect monster, so we can activate our spell, milling again. Ashana, this time we're gonna grab the water one. Ashana summoned the wind. I should have special summoned the water before I summoned the wind, but that's fine because we don't even use our normal summon anyway. So this time we're gonna place the Berserker in the correct zone, increase our life points, and we're going to end turn. Our opponent will do the Speedroid combo. They're going to summon Turretop, grab Yo-Yo, special summon Taki Tombo. They already have everything. They're going to activate Piper effect to grab another Taki Tombo that they can't really summon. They're going to make Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. That is okay because it still can't beat over our monster. And because we don't even have effects on field, we don't really care about him negating our stuff. He's going to Kite Drake, which we can't negate, but we could activate our Water TENYI to revive it and then pop a monster weapon control. So we're going to pop his Kite Drake. He's going to grab a Horse Stilts from his deck. And he's going to normal summon his W-Yo, summoning a Tuner, making another Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. And then he's gonna activate Darker Duke to summon back the dice and make Crystal Wing. He realizes that he can't beat over a monster. He's gonna activate his skill to make a Clear Wing, which has a more attack until I activate the Wind effect from a graveyard, and he crashes. Here we have the expensive version of the deck. We're yet again going first. So even in the expensive version, because of the way I built the deck, we're going to end on the exact same board. We drew 3 copies of Vessel, That's okay because we also have another TENYI, so we still get to do the entire combo, even though we're going to end on one less attribute in the graveyard because we didn't open with one of the elements. So we're only going to end on a fire and a water in the graveyard without the wind, because the wind one is probably the worst of the three. We're gonna again end on Berserker, gain life points. He's going to set a bunch of back row and end turn. And while he has the Ghost Destroyer on field, we can't banish cards from the graveyard, so we're gonna have to get rid of it. He's going to Book of Moon our monster, preventing us to make a synchro. That's okay, we still have the Berserker, we're going to attack our opponent's monster. He's going to Eternal Soul to summon a Dark Magician, which has less attack than us, so I'm kinda not concerned at all. He's going to grab a circle, that's perfectly fine. He's going to add to hand a Magician's Navigation. He's going to link summon a Wee Witch's Apprentice, activate Eternal Soul, attempt to banish my Berserker, but we have a target negate from our graveyard, which we will use to negate and destroy our opponent's circle. Our opponent is going to link away his Dark Magician, and turn, okay. He's going to Eternal Soul back his Dark Magician, Magical Magician's Rod to tribute his Wee Witch to grab itself back to the hand. We're gonna Cosmic his back row, mill a copy of Vishada with our Vessel, use Vishada's effect to bounce the second back row, and now we are free to do whatever we want. We're going to make our Draco Berserker attack our opponent's effect monster because it only triggers the effect if it destroys a effect monster and sends it to graveyard. So we're gonna attack the Link, gain its attack again, and that will be lethal. Good game.